Hey everybody, happy Christmas Eve. It's here. Today I'm not going to talk about like the God stuff. I'll do that tomorrow for Christmas Day. Today I want to talk about Christmas Eve. I want to talk about the potential of Christmas Eve. I want to talk about being merry and bright. I'm wearing my ugly sweater again, Christmas sweater, because you know what? It's Christmas Eve and this is exciting. What are your traditions? What are the things that you have done all your life that just make Christmas Eve Christmas Eve? Traditions for Christmas Eve, like for anything in our lives, they evolve, and probably some of the things you did when you were a kid have changed and morphed over the years. A couple of things for me. One thing I remember is that when we were little kids, we would go to Christmas Eve service at our church, and for some reason, you know the way the memory works. In my head, I have morphed. We had four Christmas Eves when we were in St. Thomas. Four from I think four um, let's see here, kindergarten, grade one, grade two, grade three. Yeah, four Christmas Eves when we were in St. Thomas. And we went to a church called Trinity Anglican Church. And I loved it. We had Ray Farrell there. We had Bill Townsend was a priest there. We had students that I went on later in life to work with, some of them. It was incredible. I was 5 to 8 years old. And I remember lots of things, but all of my memories seem to have coalesced into one Christmas Eve, and they weren't. But so this mega Christmas Eve in my head, I remember getting ready to go to church, and my mom would, I don't know how she did it, but she was working full time. She was working nights. She had two daughters at that time, and she was working nights at the hospital as a nurse in St. Thomas, and she was a great seamstress, and she would go up like every evening it seemed before Christmas, and we wouldn't be allowed in the room other than once in a while she'd come have us come in to sort of take measurements. And I remember, and I know that these are two different Christmases, but one Christmas we she made us these incredible nightgowns. They were blue with a kind of a paisley pattern, like dark blue with a light blue swirl, and they were long, right to the floor with the wrists that like sleeves that came all the way down to the wrists. Now, I was always a very particular little girl. I'm still a very particular, not so little girl, and like she put elastic band in the wrist, which drove me nuts. Um, I don't like having things tied close to here, and she also had it had a tie that would come around from the back from the sides and you'd tie, which was a pain to sleep with because you'd have the bow in the back, but otherwise perfect. They were beautiful. They were meant to be nightgowns, but I just imagined that they were like ball gowns. Another Christmas, she made what we referred to, my sister and I referred to as our Laura Ingalls dresses. Mine was again with had the doily, not doily, but the lace and the sleeves, and it was sort of mid calf length and came down. It was a light brown color with a little kind of like a wildflower pattern. And my sister's was identical, but hers was dark green and it was, of course, smaller. Um, and those were our go to church dresses, and we got to wear them. They were unveiled, and we got to wear them to go to Christmas Eve church. And I remember this one Christmas Eve, and this makes is important to me because my grandfather was so important to me. He had, unbeknownst to us, he had made us an easel. So it was like goes like this, right, like an easel, and came down here, and it had a platform, like a shelf underneath, and then the legs, and it was red, and on one side was a bulletin board, like a cork board, and on one side was a chalkboard, and he made it, and my mom stained it, like she painted it and did all the work on it. And she'd been doing that in the basement, unbeknownst to us. And this night we're going to go to church, and I want to believe it was when we had the Laura Ingalls dresses. I can't remember, but it had snowed St. Thomas. It was it felt like 11 o'clock at night. It was probably 6 o'clock or something, 7 o'clock service, and the snow on the trees was gorgeous, and they had that cold, so cold that the snow was crisp, and every step you took you could hear it cracking as you walked. And we went out and got in our old Ford Buick. No, it wasn't a Ford Buick, our old Buick, which was like a maroon color, two-door. It was state of the art, awesome, I think, that year. So this would probably be about 1977, 78. We got in that old car, and oh, mom had to run back in the house for a minute, and she took forever. And we couldn't figure out why she was taking forever, but she got in the car. We went off to church, and again, I've conflated memories, but our priest, Ray Farrell, made these oranges, and he had like juju beads on on sticks on toothpicks stuck in these oranges, and this one orange to begin with, and he was talking about something. For the life of me, I can't remember what he was talking about. It wasn't the sage or the this allspice or whatever it is that you put. That there's a thing that people do with oranges at Christmas. This was he was it was a children's focus, and he was talking something about all of the children in the world being welcomed in Christ or something like this. But I remember it was so exciting. And then we all got one of these oranges and a candy cane, and we had it was neat to be in the church at night, and all the trees were lit up and everything. It was not the same year. Now they say that it was not the same year as we had the blue nightgowns, because we had the blue nightgowns. My sister and I were wise men, I believe, in the Christmas pageant, and we wore those as our costumes. Anyway, but this Christmas we gathered, and remember we got these oranges, and we got to go home. So excited. And then the Mains came over. They were friends of ours, and we had a thing called parish sponsors, that when people were being baptized, especially if they were older, they didn't just have godparents, they'd be the parish sponsors. And we were parish sponsors for Leona, Maine. And she was, I think, maybe 13 or 14 at the time. She could have been a bit older. But she had this massive, like, she had red hair, and she was fun. Leona was a good friend to us, and her parents were good friends of my parents. So Leona and her family came over after the Christmas Eve. They went to church with us after the Christmas Eve service, and came over to our house where we had eggnog, and we were allowed to open presents. And so we opened the presents that were given to us by our parents. And in the living room was this easel with the blackboard on one side, the chalkboard on one side, the bulletin board on the other, and a clips to put paper for painting, and all this stuff. And I remember the Mains gave us each boxes of pencils that had our names on them. Different, they were like black lead pencils, but they were colored pencils, and they had our names printed on them. It was so cool. My name spelled right on these multicolored pencils. It was amazing. I then also have conflated that to be the year that I got, although I know the year I got a record player. When I think about it, I was 6 years old, and I got the Captain and Tennille album. And in that album cover came a poster of Captain and Tennille, which I then had my mom replace the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs that was on the wall above me in a frame. She put the Captain and Tennille poster in the frame for me, and I love listening to that record. I love music right from an early age. But I remember that year we opened our presents, and then the next morning, then of course Santa Claus would come, and then we also discovered that not only had Santa Claus come, but my grandmother had sent my mother on a trip to purchase for us sleeping bags, and my mom had made us little pillows to go with our sleeping bags. Mine was a dark blue sleeping bag with like a hunting camel pattern on the inside, and my sister's was a red one with a flower pattern on the inside. And we both had these pillows, and I got a transistor radio and listened to it all the way up to the farm, 3 hours to the farm, going up with a little white earbud with the cord to go with this little transistor radio that only got AM stations. But hey, I was in heaven listening to Static and CKNX all the way up to the farm. Point being, that Christmas was huge for me, and I was 6, 7, 8 years old. Which pick a year, because somehow I've created the memories all in there. When I was 11, just about 11, my grandmother died, my dad's mom, and she died in May or early June, and I think May, and it was hard. It was hard on the family, but that Christmas, Dad told us that we were not going to open presents on Christmas Eve. We had to wait for Christmas Day. And I wondered about that because we'd never done that before. And then we argued with him, and he said, okay, you can open one present on Christmas Eve. And he told us that that's the way we've always done it. But that's not the way we'd always done it. We used to open presents on Christmas Eve, and now we're only allowed to open one, but that's after we've argued. And all of a sudden now, on Christmas Day, we're not allowed to open presents until after we have porridge, oatmeal. I like that, but we have to have porridge first before we can open presents. You see, when my dad's mom died, he went back in his mind to the way his traditions had been when he was a child, which was, Grandma said, Christmas presents are only open on Christmas Day. But when the kids would be upset and cry, like, oh, Mom, Mom, she'd give in and let them open one present Christmas Eve. And in the morning, they'd have porridge, and then they'd open the presents, and there'd be all the mess and all the things. And that's the way he grew up. And you see, then that became our thing. And then when I was on my own, I got up my first several Christmases. I got up and I made myself porridge for Christmas Day. And if there were presents under my tree from other people, I wouldn't open them till Christmas Day. And to be quite honest, because I had so many Christmases I buy myself, sometimes I buy myself something and wrap it and open it up on Christmas Day because then I'd have something. And I always had gifts to take to my family when I go visit them. And then when Rob and I were married, we did the same thing. He adopted mine. Now, what we adopted from his family was that everything in your stocking had to be wrapped individually. We never had that when I was a kid. So now all of our stocking stuffers are wrapped individually. Thank you, Santa. And we, even to this day, just the two of us and the dog in the house, we wrap each individual stocking stuffer and we open one present on Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas morning, we open our stocking stuffers, our stockings. Then we have porridge. Thank you, Rob, for doing that for me. And then we have our Christmas, quite often after church. But the thing is that we take our traditions and they meld with us, and they become a part of who we are, and that's okay. Traditions don't have to be static. They don't have to stay always the same. It's what they bring out of us. It's the things they do, like me talking to you for 11 and a half minutes about the fact of what my Christmas was like. Whether or not you stuck with me to watch this long, you've allowed me to have an audience to remember and live some amazing Christmas Eves that were really important. So as you enter into your Christmas Eve, what traditions are you carrying forward? Are there some you're letting go of or you have to let go of? Are there things that you might be doing differently, creating new traditions? The thing is, you don't have to behold them. There's no rule of life that says that these things have to be stepped exactly this way forever. Let them evolve with you. And if there's things you want to resurrect from your past, go for it. If there's things from your past you want to let go, go for that. Allow yourself to celebrate and to remember and to be at peace and hopefully enjoy this Christmas Eve in whichever ways you need. God bless you. I will see you tomorrow, I hope, for Christmas Day. And then again on the next day, I'm going to try to do these videos all through the Christmas break. And we'll go from there. But have a blessed Christmas Eve, whatever your traditions may be. And I will raise a glass of eggnog to you this night when I come in after Christmas Eve services and I sit in front of the tree and just listen and probably watch the Pope do Christmas Mass at the Vatican because that's become a tradition that Rob loves. God bless you. Merry Christmas. And always know that you are loved.